King Charles visits Wales for the first time since coming to the throne. In bright sunshine, crowds of well-wishers line the streets of Cardiff to greet the King and the Queen Consort. It is the final stage of the King's tour of the 4 nations of the United Kingdom.
The land of Wales could not have been closer to my mother's heart. Roedd lle arbennig I Gymru yn uchelon.
Well, this is the scene live at Westminster Hall, where tonight the King will join his sister and brothers in standing vigil at the coffin of their mother, the late Queen.
Guys, sorry, we're closed now.
And the gates have been closed temporarily on the queue where people have been waiting to see the Queen's coffin.
We already had a problem with the trains and had to come by bus, but we're tough. We're not worried about it. We would, we want to pay our respects.
Well, at one stage, the gates were closed to stop more people joining, but they have now reopened and people are again able to join that queue, which is at the moment about 14 hours. Also this afternoon, 2 police officers stabbed in London's West End, one of them with what may be life-changing injuries. More than 400 bodies discovered in a mass burial site in Ukraine, in territory recaptured from Russian forces. And also in the programme this afternoon, the striking ways that some people are choosing to pay tribute to the Queen.
And coming up on the BBC News Channel, the Premier League resumes this evening after its postponement of matches as a mark of respect following the death of Queen Elizabeth II.
Good afternoon. King Charles is in Wales on his first visit there since coming to the throne and the final stage of his tour of the home nations. Crowds of cheering well-wishers line the streets to greet the King and the Queen Consort as they arrived at Llandaff Cathedral for a service of remembrance for Queen Elizabeth. Well, the royal couple then heard condolences from the Welsh Parliament and they are currently at a reception at Cardiff Castle. Our Wales correspondent Hal Griffith has this report.
After 64 years as Prince, a first foray to Wales as King. The significance signalled by the now familiar salute. The visit began with a service of prayer and reflection on the life of Elizabeth II. A time for solemnity and celebration, remembering how she engaged everyone she met.
To the person on the street, with an attentiveness that made you feel you were valued, you were understood. Born perhaps of her experience as a mother, grandmother and great-grandmother, as much as Queen. This kind of skill is learned over the decades.
Outside, they'd waited patiently for a glimpse of the man who is now the monarch and inherits goodwill at a time of grief.
We're just really pleased that he's taken the time, because it's not the best time for him after losing a parent for anybody. But, you know, to come to Wales and to show our support, I think is really important.
We've come out not only to experience history, but, you know, it's an experience as a family with the little ones, and, you know, just be a part of it.
Well, personally, I don't believe that we need a Prince of Wales. But I'm more than happy to welcome the royal family here.
University College, Aberystwyth, where, to the relief of the nation, Prince Charles was given a warm and very friendly welcome. The Prince, who on July the 1st becomes Prince of Wales, is taking a 9-week Welsh language and history course at the university.
The welcome hasn't always been so warm. Security concerns surrounded Charles's time in Wales in the 1960s. He came to Aberystwyth for a crash course in Welsh, as a way of trying to win over a nation sceptical of having an English Prince of Wales. it didn't stop the protests in the lead-up to his investiture. For years, these images defined his relationship with Wales, but tensions gradually eased. That relationship relaxed. Royal patronage was used as a way to find a place in Welsh life.
His love of the arts and Welsh culture. I think his commitment to Wales has always been there. I don't doubt it for 1 minute.
But how committed is Wales to maintaining the monarchy? Opinion polls suggest support here hovers just above 50%.
Oh, I think they bring a lot of revenue, obviously, to this country.
To Wales?
Yes, to everywhere. Yeah, people love the monarchy, I think.
I don't know, it just seems out of touch with where we are as a country now. I think now the Queen's gone, and I think a lot of people are holding on to the romance of the Queen, but yeah, I personally...
Not part of the future for Wales?
No.
This afternoon, the focus shifted to the Senedd, a building opened by the Queen, an institution which grew with her support. Its members offered their condolences.
Today, there is a sense of transition in Wales. This morning, we came together in a service of reflection at Llandaff Cathedral to look back over a reign unrivalled in its length and its reach.
For many, this visit marks a new chapter, a time when the royal relationship with Wales is reframed and renewed.
Through all the years of her reign, the land of Wales could not have been closer to my mother's heart. Roedd lle arbennig I Gymru yn ei chalon.
Hywel Griffith, BBC News, Cardiff.
Let's get more now from our Wales correspondent Thomas Morgan, who's at Cardiff Castle. Thomas, a really warm welcome for the King and the Queen consort today.
Yeah, it's been quite extraordinary across Cardiff, really. From when he started in Llandaff Cathedral this morning, people waiting from 3 a.m. to get the best seat in the house to see the King finally arriving in Wales after being made king, after being Prince of Wales. And then, as my colleague Ho was saying, going to the Senedd. I think many people were possibly hoping for a little touch from him, that touch being some Welsh. Of course, echoes, as you saw in Howell's piece, of 1969, when the then Prince of Wales had his investiture, having a crash course in Aberystwyth to learn Welsh and then delivering parts of his speech in Welsh. Echoes today in the Senedd, where he spoke quite a bit actually in Welsh, flitting between the two languages, saying diolch, thanking the presiding officer, members of the Senedd and the First Minister for their condolences after the passing of his mother, Queen Elizabeth. He went on to speak in Welsh and talk about the privilege it had been to be the Prince of Wales, and that how now his son, Prince William, the new Prince of Wales, had a deep love of Wales and already a patron of the Welsh rugby since 2016. And he finished in England to say that we will all continue to work together for Wales. Now, he's already arrived in the castle here, thousands outside in the streets of the city centre to greet him here. There was a small protest, shouts of boo that he wasn't our king as he came through the castle gates, but really that was in the minority. The overwhelming majority here very much looking towards the new king and very happy that he's finally set foot in Wales today.
Thomas, thank you very much indeed. Thomas Morgan reporting. Well, so many people want to see the Queen lying in state that at one stage today, mourners were stopped from joining the queue, which is taking some 14 hours to complete. The government said the queue's starting point, Southwark Park, had reached capacity. So, for a while, the gates were closed, but then, amid some confusion, they were reopened. Well, meanwhile, it's been confirmed that at the request of King Charles, Prince Harry can wear military uniform when he takes part in a vigil beside the coffin tomorrow. The first time he's been able to do so since stepping back as a working royal. Here's Paul Adams.
And still they come, hour by hour, minute by minute, in parks and streets, past offices and monuments, a steady, shuffling procession now 5 miles long. People driven by love, duty, the chance to say they were there. At Southwark Park, where the queue begins, a pause this morning. There were, it seems, simply too many people.
Yeah, she kept everything moving, and she never gave up, so why should we give up?
By now, wait times had reached 14 hours. For a while, the government urged the public not to try joining the line.
We just arrived, I think, a couple of minutes after they closed the gate. Yeah, that's life.
Queue to get into
Absolutely.
the queue. Yes, it seems that way. We've only really just joined.
Yeah.
We're not entirely sure, you know,
We
where
don't
we're
know.
at,
We haven't
what
been
will
told
happen.
any information at the moment, but we'll just wait.
We're still smiling.
Yeah.
In Westminster Hall, the vigil continues. After the long walk, an air of anticipation. Members of the public have had many hours to think about these few short moments. The tributes come in many forms. After the camaraderie of the wait, this is private, personal. This evening, for 15 minutes, King Charles and his 3 siblings will stand watch over their mother's coffin. All will be in military uniform. The King is focused, his spokesman said, on leading the family, the nation, the realms and the Commonwealth in mourning for Queen Elizabeth. Tomorrow, the Queen's 8 grandchildren will take their turn. Outside the capital, more preparations for Monday's state funeral. 4,000 military personnel will be on parade, including these members of the Royal Air Force, practicing at RAF Halton in Buckinghamshire.
She's been the integral part of the armed forces, the glue between the tri-services, and for me just to pay my one small little bit of respect by doing this duty, I can't measure how prideful I feel about that, and how humbled to have the opportunity to do that.
Back in London, the police say the funeral will be the largest event they've ever dealt with. In 3 days, this country will witness something most of us have never seen, perhaps will never see again in quite the same way. A vast, complex and highly charged turning of a national page. Paul Adams, BBC News.
Well, let's just show you some live pictures then of the queue as people wait to get to Westminster Hall to pay their respects. And as we heard, the entry to the queue at one stage a little bit earlier on today was paused by the authorities because the entry point at Southwark Park, they said, had reached capacity. Let's get the latest on that. In a moment, we can talk to Helen Catt, who's at Westminster Hall. But first, let's go to Angus Crawford, our correspondent, who's where people are still trying to join the queue. And there has been a bit of confusion, hasn't there, today, Angus?
Well, the official advice is still, please don't come. The authorities are very concerned about crowding at the entrance to the park. There were crowds of people wanting to get in, stretching across the main road, which is why this morning at about 10 o'clock they issued a statement saying that temporarily they would pause, they would close the gates, and it might take up to 6 hours for them to open again. Actually, what we find now is they're simply regulating the flow. So we see a trickle of people coming through into the park to join the main queues, which are snaking their way through the park and these zigzags and off then to the main route towards Westminster Hall. But it has to be said, these people here, even those who are in the queue, they can't expect to get to Westminster Hall until sometime tomorrow morning. They've got a very, very long wait ahead of them. Young, old, we came across a family with a very small baby. They've got a very, very long time ahead of them. But it has to be said, this is a tale of two queues, because there is a queue also for those with disabilities, an accessibility queue, which starts at Tate Britain, very much closer to Westminster. And the advice is the same. Please don't go at the moment. They are very concerned about overcrowding. And I've been told that the timed slots that were given to people with accessibility issues, those are now filled till late tonight. So the official advice is please don't come at the moment, just wait. But there is another big decision that has to be made at some stage, and that is at what point do they cut off the queue? Do they shut the queue altogether so that it can all get through, everyone can get through before 6:30 when the viewing in state, the lying in state stops on Monday morning? And I'm now told that that decision may be taken at some stage on Sunday morning.
Thank you very much, Angus Crawford there. Let's also go to Helen Catt, who's with some of the people who've been at Westminster Hall. Helen.
Yeah, this is the point that all that queuing is building up for those few minutes inside Westminster Hall. And the people who are coming out now have been queuing for about 14 hours. They joined the queue last night. They've come from all across the country, including Lee and Sam Wright, who've come down from Cleethorpes. What was it like when you got into Westminster Hall, Lee?
It was surreal. It was humbling at the same time as being surreal. I mean, we felt we had to come down. We couldn't stay at home any longer, you know. Watching it on TV is fabulous, but we really needed to come and pay our respects. And it's a moment in history. What I found most is there's been so many things going wrong in the last 3 years with COVID and the Russians problem. And I felt it was a time for us all to come together. It's a time for humanity to set the reset button, if you like, so that we can all come together and see what it's all about, you know.
And Sam, a lot of people have said the word calm to me to describe the atmosphere. What was the atmosphere like?
It was unbelievable. You stepped in, and the minute you went through the door, you could hear a pin drop. Everybody was just so respectful, and it was just unbelievable. It really was. And emotional.
And you've been queuing for 14 hours. Just how are you feeling now?
Quite achy.
The calf muscles are achy, but it's worth every sinew ache. Those 14 hours, just for a few moments in there.
Yeah,
and,
unbelievable.
And that's actually something that everyone I've spoken to so far in the last hour has said, is that it's well worth it, no matter how far they've come, no matter how far they've travelled, then that has been well worth every minute of it. Ben.
Helen, thank you very much indeed, and to your guests. Helen Catt there. Well, while preparations for the Queen's state funeral on Monday continue in London, communities across the United Kingdom are making their own plans to mark the occasion. Our North of England correspondent Fiona Trott reports now from Bradford.
Do you remember the Queen when she came here?
A family's fond memory.
We were told the protocol. Not to touch her.
And then the Swamiji put the shawl on over your stove. We thought I was going to get into trouble.
For Sarita and Arshna, this was more than a royal visit. It was royal recognition. Their father helped build the first Hindu temple outside London. Now, Arshna is travelling to the capital for the Queen's funeral.
I want to be there, because obviously my dad can't be there, and say farewell to her and thank her for her service.
We'll be coming down here and watching with Mum, because my son has got the day off, so we'll be coming here together to watch it.
I cry all the day.
Yeah.
A Bradford family or a royal family, they both know grief.
So both gone, you know.
Dad and the Queen.
Very sad, you know.
That's why the cathedral is opening its doors.
Okay, that's great, mate. That's in place.
On Monday, anybody can come here to watch the funeral and comfort one another.
People have been coming up to me, coming into the cathedral, and talking about some really old-fashioned things. You know, the sense that Her Majesty brought a constancy, that she was faithful, she was a servant of the people. I think Her Majesty brought security to us without even speaking.
Flags at half-mast, a common sight now, and a subtle teaching tool at this nearby school.
You are going to do an activity because there's something special happening on Monday.
It's her funeral.
It's her funeral.
And why have you made that today? Because the Queen has died on the very morning.
Do you know how long she was Queen for?
70.
70 years. Did you have a tea party?
Yeah.
Did you have marmalade sandwiches?
Yeah.
Do you know where the Queen kept her marmalade sandwiches?
In her bag.
We'd recently been doing all of these events around the Platinum Jubilee, so it's very relevant to them in their minds. And then to come back after the summer and for her to pass away, they felt that sense of shock. And so we needed to acknowledge that and then move through the week also commemorating and celebrating her life.
The pupils paying tribute, the cathedral comforting the community, and the family saying thanks. This is one of many cities preparing to say goodbye. Fiona Trott, BBC News, Bradford.
Well, you can follow all the events and developments leading up to the funeral of Queen Elizabeth on the BBC News website and also on iPlayer. The time is 20 minutes past 2. Our top story this lunchtime. King Charles III is on his first visit to Wales since coming to the throne. It is the last stage of the new King's tour of the home nations. And this is the scene live now in central London, where people have been queuing for up to 14 hours. At one stage, the gates were closed to stop new people joining the queue after it reached capacity.
Coming up on the BBC News channel, the Women's Super League gets underway this evening. The start of the season was postponed as a mark of respect following the death of Queen Elizabeth II.
The authorities in Ukraine say a mass burial site containing more than 400 bodies has been found outside the eastern city of Izium after it was recaptured from Russian forces. It's not yet clear what happened to the victims, but reports suggest some of them had their hands tied and rope around their necks. Ukraine says all the bodies will be exhumed and sent for forensic examination. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia leaves death everywhere. This report now from our correspondent Hugo Bachega in Kyiv does contain some images you may find distressing.
In the forest outside Izium, a shocking discovery. Hundreds of crosses. Most have no names, only numbers. Here, 17 people could have been buried. Who they were isn't clear. Ukraine says these are victims of Russia's occupation. This morning, the first bodies were recovered. The painful task of trying to find the truth and the fear that scenes like these could be just the beginning. From President Zelensky, strong words.
We want the world to know what is really happening and what the Russian occupation did to Bucha, Mariupol, and now, unfortunately, to Izium. Russia is leaving death behind it everywhere and must be held responsible.
Izium was invaded in the early days of the war. It was a major military base by the Russians before they fled just days ago. As Ukrainian forces come back, the horrors of what happened are starting to come to light. In Kyiv, one of the president's top advisors told me some of the findings were shocking.
In general, we saw great destruction. In some of the liberated places, we saw all the buildings completely destroyed, many places of mass burials, many places where people were tortured. We saw wildly frightened people who were kept without light, without food, without water, and without the right to justice.
In Izium, residents are out again, no longer afraid. The scars in the city are everywhere, but there's more that we can't yet see. This morning, the head of the National Police said all bodies that have been recovered so far appear to be civilians, but there was information that soldiers were there too. Investigators are still examining the bodies, and Russia hasn't commented on the allegations. But if the numbers are confirmed, this could be one of the largest atrocities in Europe in decades. Ben?
Hugo, thank you very much. Hugo Bachega reporting there. Here, 2 police officers are being treated in hospital after they were stabbed in central London early this morning. The suspect, who's also in hospital, has been arrested. Well, our correspondent, Celestina Olulade, is at the scene for us now with more details. Celestina.
Ben, you join me as forensics teams appear to be packing up from the scene. What we know is that a female officer has sustained serious injuries that could be life-changing. Another officer was stabbed 3 times in the neck and once in the chest. Now, the Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, said that it doesn't appear that this incident is terror-related.
Officers are challenging dangerous and suspicious people across London day in and day out, and there's no reason to believe this is anything else other than one of those incidents that has been, sadly, more violent than most of those. So we don't believe it's linked to the preparations for the funeral, and we have no reason to suggest it's anything at all to do with terrorism.
Now we know that a taser was used and a man has been arrested on suspicion of GBH and attempting to assault an emergency worker. That man was taken to hospital. He's now been discharged and is in police custody. Ben.
Celestina, thank you very much indeed. Train drivers from 12 rail companies are staging fresh strikes on the 1st and the 5th of October in their long-running dispute over pay. A strike that had been planned for the 15th of September was postponed after news of the Queen's death. A strike by air traffic controllers in France has meant hundreds of European flights being cancelled, affecting thousands of passengers. Many services which fly over France are affected by today's action, as well as some flying into and out of the country. More disruption is expected later on this month. Retail sales in the UK fell by 1.6% in August compared with the previous month. That's a larger fall than analysts had been expecting. The Office for National Statistics blamed the impact of the rising cost of living. Now, since the death of Queen Elizabeth, people have been finding different and sometimes striking ways to remember her and to pay their respects, as our arts correspondent David Silito has been finding out.
We're in Woppenham, in Northamptonshire.
Not far to go.
And I was being led by David and Annette Wilson.
Yeah, we are actually in the flag as we speak, yes.
To a royal location.
Let's go this way anyway.
It wasn't straightforward.
We're nearly to the end, yes. We're getting there.
So this is the point?
This is it.
I can't see the flag.
We are actually in the
we
flag.
Are in the flag, yes.
We're in the flag. How do we see it then?
The only way we can see it properly is if we go up.
It is a creation best seen by plane or drone. It was planted in the spring for the Jubilee and it was almost cut down. Thankfully, it was saved because it has now become a place of memorial. It was created for the Jubilee.
That's right, yeah. What was originally for a lovely celebration, a happy celebration for the Queen, has now become a real tribute to her.
Normally you'd have got rid of it by this time of the year, but you're going to keep this, I'm presuming, now.
Yes, we're going to try and keep it for as long as possible.
So a place that began as a celebration has in many ways become a place of memorial, but it will soon be gone. However, there are many others now thinking about how to create some lasting memory of this moment. This mural, for instance, was commissioned and created within hours of last week's sad news.
Abraham, our artist, was here at 5:30 yesterday morning and we were done by about 3:30, so smashed it out pretty quickly.
A request from the children of Gainsborough Primary in Newham, who are very proud of their new artwork. What did you think when you first saw it?
I thought it was a beautiful painting and I was so happy with the people that did it. It's amazing. It just creates more memories inside your head. Her eyes look real, very real.
The feathers look good, don't they?
They look real. And it also will remind us that we're not alone, that she will still be there. So if we sometimes pass, we can always give her flowers. I've never seen a picture like that great, and especially the crown. I love it.
Everyone can see this walking past.
Exactly. And
people
what
been
better
laying
way
flowers,
to pay tribute to Her Majesty the Queen than having her on the front of our school.
And the kids, as soon as they came into school, they were saying, we want something.
Yeah. They wanted us to do something.
But they wanted something permanent.
But they wanted something big.
Not all of us can lay flowers at a palace or queue for the lying in state. But there are many ways to remember. David Silito, BBC News, Newham, East London.
Well, just a reminder then of today's events so far. King Charles and Camilla, the Queen Consort, are in Wales today as they complete their tour of the UK's 4 nations. People line the streets to welcome them in his first visit as monarch. He and the Queen Consort attended a service of prayer and reflection for the Queen at Llandaff Cathedral. The King then visited Senedd, where he gave a speech reflecting on the late Queen's love for Wales, and he's now at a reception at Cardiff Castle. Well, meanwhile, this is the scene live now in central London. This is the queue to see the Queen lying in state. It's now about 14 hours, that queue. People are being asked not to join it at Southwark Park, the end of the queue, because the government is saying that has reached capacity. The gates were closed for a while, but then reopened. The government said it had paused entry for some 6 hours, but people have been allowed in since that announcement. And this is the scene at Westminster Hall. This evening, the Queen's 4 children, Charles, Anne, Andrew and Edward, will stand vigil for 15 minutes at her coffin there in Westminster Hall. Let's take a look at the weekend weather prospects for you now with Ben Rich. Hello, Ben.
Hi, Ben. Thank you. Good afternoon. No doubt a lot of people will be heading to London for the commemorations over the weekend. And one of the most notable things about the weather in the capital will be just how cool it feels. Daytime temperatures of 17 or 18 degrees, some chilly nights, but it will stay largely dry, as it is for most of us right now. But there are some shower clouds across Northern Ireland, parts of Wales, and a few more showers down eastern coasts of Scotland and eastern England, where it is also quite windy at the moment. Gusts along some of those eastern coasts of 40 to 45 miles per hour. That is making it feel really quite chilly. So temperatures this afternoon in Aberdeen no higher than 12 degrees. Highest values in some shelter further west, 19 in Cardiff. Now, as we go through this evening, much of the daytime cloud will melt away. We'll see clear skies overnight, and especially where the winds are light away from this east coast, it is going to turn really chilly tonight. Those are the temperatures for towns and cities. Some places down to 4 degrees, but some places in the countryside will get very close to freezing. So you may wake up to a touch of grass frost early tomorrow morning. But a lot of sunshine to come through the day, particularly for England and Wales. More cloud for Northern Ireland and Scotland. Some showers in the north of Scotland. There may still be some showers grazing the coast of East Anglia, but probably not quite as many as there are today. Still quite breezy though in the east, and still rather cool, 13 to 18 degrees at best. Won't be quite as cold on Saturday night, a little bit chilly down towards the southwest, but most of us will be a touch milder because there'll be more cloud in the mix by this stage. Sunday morning will start with a band of cloud, maybe bringing some showers as it drifts southwards across the UK. And even where we start with sunshine, I think we'll see more cloud developing as the day wears on. Those temperatures, though, still lower than they have been of late. 14 for Stornoway, 16 for Glasgow, 19 the high there in Cardiff. And then as we look ahead to Monday for the Queen's state funeral, we will see this area of high pressure building. That will cut off some of the brisk winds that have been affecting some eastern areas, and it will keep things largely dry. But I think there is going to be quite a lot of cloud around again on Monday. Some showers chiefly for these Irish Sea coasts. Just a small chance of a shower in London. I think on balance it will stay dry, and those temperatures 13 to 19 degrees. So a lot of dry weather this weekend, but some cool days and some chilly nights. Ben.
Thank you very much indeed. And that is all for now. So it's a goodbye from me. And on BBC One, we'll now join the BBC's news teams where you are. Have a very good afternoon.